I am here!
Hey, pervy sage!
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Full Nerd Academia podcast. I am your host, Master D. Maito. Looks like it's just going to be me today. Unfortunately, my lovely co-host, Bonkai Merc, had a colonoscopy today and hasn't quite. Sorry, words. How do they work? Had a colonoscopy today, hasn't quite bounced back, so he's not going to be joining me today. However, I believe the next one, hopefully, if we do it this weekend, he'll be back with me, and maybe we could talk a little bit more WrestleMania. I'll probably touch on it a little bit today. I really only watched the highlights. I didn't really end up watching both days worth of stuff, so I'll touch on that a little bit later. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and get some music rolling here. That way we can get started on what we're going to be talking about today. It might be a little bit of a longer episode, and a little bit of a longer episode for me to be doing by myself. So, maybe it works out just because he's normally on a time crunch on the Saturdays. So maybe this gives me some time to breeze through all the stuff that I want to talk about. What is this? Feeding the Ducks. That's a new one. Okay. I can bounce with this. That's cool. Anywho, so quite a lot to talk about today. Lots of news that came out from last week for the most part. Going to be touching on a lot of stuff that I watched over the past week. If anybody ends up joining live, hopefully we could chit-chat a little bit, talk some stuff about nerdy stuff. But why don't we get cracking right in here? Give me 1 second. Get this out of the way. So starting us off here, we're going to be talking about we're going to be hitting the news. So
Good news, everyone!
good news indeed. Spoilers galore, everybody. It's been all over the internet a lot lately, but in case you don't want anything spoiled for Daredevil Born Again, which I'm not sure when it's supposed to be dropping. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's sometime next year, if not probably towards the end of this year. So spoilers galore for that. Ooh, wrong one. That's good. Put the speculation station thing on here. Okay. So right off the bat, we're going to get jumping into this. So if you haven't been following the news cycle lately for Daredevil Born Again, there's been a lot of stuff going on. There was a lot of overhaul with the give me a second. There's been a lot going on. There was a lot of overhaul with what it was written as originally. We'll go with this here instead. A lot of rewrites, a lot of reshoots and stuff like that. I'm assuming this is something that was part of those reshoots, part of the rewrites. But looks like John Bernthal has joined the cast. I think a lot of people have speculated this for a long time, but this is like full on, like this is what's going on. So John Bernthal has returned as the Punisher in Daredevil Born Again, and seemingly, hopefully, be getting a spin-off of his own show, The Punisher, or like a continuation of The Punisher from where he left off after season 2. But I guess, only time will tell, hopefully, because, of all the shows, Daredevil and Punisher were like the two best shows off of the Netflix Marvel series. So, but here we got Johnny Bernthal, back in the bulletproof vest with the Punisher skull. Here are some more behind the scenes. Him and Daredevil. Got some more of him and Daredevil here. Now, this next picture here is actually really interesting because of what it kind of implies, and from what the rumors and stuff are surrounding like what's going to be happening in this season of Daredevil. So as you can see here, this is an NYPD officer, and he's also wearing some tactical gear, and he has on a Punisher skull. Now, this is a more recent story that took place, honestly, kind of around the time when there was a lot of stuff going on with defund the police, around Black Lives Matter and everything that happened in like 2020, 2021, that era, era a couple years ago, where police were basically adopting the Punisher skull as like a symbol for them. And a lot of people in law enforcement and people who supported law enforcement around that time specifically were using that. So I could be wrong about the timing of the comic book and when it came out and everything like that. But to those not in the know, he's a vigilante. The reason he does what he does is because the law failed him. And so he does not look up to law enforcement. He does not really respect law enforcement. So for law enforcement to kind of adopt that as their symbol really didn't make much sense, right? So this is a panel from a comic book. Give me a second here. I can actually switch over to the bigger view so you guys can see this. But if you can't see, you can't read. It's a picture of a couple of, I'm assuming, police officers, and they're talking to Frank Castle, and it says, "We have this club, sort of more of a movement. Just show him, Oscar." And he's like, they're like showing him, the Punisher skull or whatever on their car, and he's like, "We believe in you." And he's, Frank's like, "What the hell is this? It's not the whole force." He's like, "It's not the force. It's not the whole force. Hell, most of them want you in the ground. Some of us believe in what you do. We're doing whatever we can to take back our streets." And then in this next panel, you see him like ripping the sticker off. He's like, "Hey, what are you?" And Punisher, he's like ripping it up. And he's like, "I'll say this once. We're not the same. You took an oath to uphold the law. You help people. I gave all that up a long time ago. You don't do what I do. Nobody does. You boys need a role model. His name's Captain America, and he'd be happy to have you." So that just kind of goes to show. And like I said, what this previous picture was kind of implying is that maybe there's going to be some police officers on the force in the show, sort of adopting, either Punisher's tactics or just adopting his symbol. And there's going to be a little bit of a clash there because other rumors of this series are, and it might even be confirmed at this point, are that Wilson Fisk is going to be running for mayor. He's going to be, gaining the mayor position and then running on a campaign of anti-vigilantism, which, flies in the face of Daredevil, Punisher especially, and then any other, street-level heroes for sure. Possibly Spider-Man, possibly Echo, possibly Hawkeye. Who knows? But so we have confirmation for sure that Punisher is going to be, Daredevil for him. And that's just awesome. Honestly, like when he came in season 2 of Daredevil from the the original Netflix series, like I swear it took the whole world by storm. Because everybody was used to the Punisher from the 2 movies, even the Dolph Lundgren movie from the 80s and all this other stuff. But like honestly, I feel like John Bernthal made it his own. He made a really damn compelling character, and the story that they told with both his series rather, the 2 seasons out of his series, and then the whole season of season 2 of Daredevil. Awesome, excellent. But moving forward, what do we have next here? Oh, okay, so a little something that came out on the I almost said the 4th of July. That doesn't make any sense. on April 4th. So happy 4/4 Day. This is what Marvel Studios dropped was a picture of Nicholas Quinn, Josh Quinn. Now I can't remember his name. I know his last name's Quinn. He played Eddie from Stranger Things. And this is just like sort of mock-up concept art and everything, but like for the most part, I mean, this looks pretty awesome. And you got to imagine that this is the second time now that they've showed us this sort of picture, and this sort of style and everything of the Fantastic Four. And what's really awesome about this is the suits that they were kind of wearing in that initial picture or whatever, they looked kind of old school and very like they had like a jumpsuit sort of aesthetic to it, and they had like these lines, like a sweater and like pants almost. But on top of that, the way that he looks when he's playing John here makes him look, dead on like a classic version of Johnny Storm with like sort of line paneling in the comics to sort of set him apart from the other characters and everything. So if they end up going with this vibe and like this look or whatever like that, I will be thoroughly happy with them doing this, because it honestly looks pretty good. Looks pretty great in my opinion. I know Bonkai Merc, he's not a fan of Fantastic Four at all. I'm not the hugest fan, but I do respect that they're sort of the ones that kicked off Marvel Comics as a whole, as well as Stan Lee's reign in Marvel Comics, because he was the creator of that, and afterwards so many more characters that kind of helped jumpstart the Marvel Comics too. I understand they're important for that reason. I like it all the more. So now after Fantastic Four, okay, so staying in this sort of Fantastic Four realm, there has been a little bit of shakeup going on. A lot of rumblings from Marvel Studios, and a lot of people are understandably upset about this. Fantastic Four casts its Silver Surfer and potentially confirms a fan theory in the process. So Julia Garner, who's this actor that you see right here, will reportedly play a version of the iconic comic book villain in the upcoming MCU. But it says comic book villain. They're talking about Silver Surfer, but they're talking about Silver Surfer in the context of his first appearance in the Fantastic Four. He was technically a villain. He was an antagonist, and only so far as like he was the one who was coming to, herald Galactus's arrival to Earth. So Julia Garner, I don't know much about her. I haven't had a chance to really look her up. I know that she's done a lot recently, specifically in the TV space. So she is the Fantastic Four has reportedly casted Silver Surfer, potentially confirming a persistent fan theory in the process. It was in a report by Deadline, and then this is being reported by IGN. Matt Shakman has chosen Julia Garner for the role of the classic villain, seemingly lending weight to the growing belief among some fans that the new movie is set in an alternate version of the MCU. Garner, best known for her Emmy-winning run as Ruth in Ozark, that's where I meant is in the TV space. She has played in Ozark. Will reportedly play Shala Ball, who was first introduced as Norrin Radd's lover in Silver Surfer #1. However, the Deadline reports note that she is playing an alternate version of the Silver Surfer, suggesting that this is the version from Earth X, one of Marvel's most notable alternate realities. So this this fan theory that's been going around is that if they are casting female and this is supposed to be Shia LaBeouf, it's supposed to be from the Earth X timeline, where now forgive me if because I don't know Earth X very well, which is unfortunate. I think that was outside of my realm of like reading when it first came out. From what I heard and what I understand, this character either A, took over for Norrin Radd, either after dying or Galactus, decided to give the power to her after Norrin Radd because he wasn't pleased with how Norrin Radd was doing his job, or that she was chosen over Norrin Radd for whatever reason. But either way, Shia LaBeouf is Norrin Radd's lover. That he leaves on Zenlob when he goes to become the Silver Surfer for Galactus. So there is precedence for a female Silver Surfer, but in an alternate universe. Now, there's been a lot of speculation as to whether this movie is going to be set in an alternate universe. So this isn't technically going to be the main universe. Main universe is like the 616 universe is Fantastic Four. But given that this is the multiverse saga and then it's supposed to end, I think, with Secret Wars, meaning, spoilers if you haven't read, Jonathan Hickman's, Avengers of New Avengers, Secret Wars, specifically from 2015, ultimately ends parts of the multiverse in the Marvel Universe and merges some worlds, specifically the Ultimate Universe and the Marvel 616 or the Earth 616 universe. So there's a possibility for that where maybe they pick different universes and tend to and then they'll merge them together. So the old Fox movies, maybe some people will be coming from that, those old casts might be coming over possibly as the X-Men. Maybe some other people from the other Fantastic Four movies might be coming over. We know that in Deadpool 3, they plan on doing a lot of cameos to sort of help, not jumpstart, because this saga has been going, the multiverse saga has been going on for a while now. We're already in phase 5. They really haven't done a whole lot with this multiverse, sort of stuff, other than showing us in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness and Spider-Man No Way Home. So, and then obviously What If, because I think technically that is canon to the MCU. And then obviously with Loki setting up that he has become the god of stories, holding different timelines together. So we're thinking maybe this all has something to do with one another. Either way, I mean, I'll wait to see. I really kind of hope that this is sort of a one-off thing, and then we actually do end up getting a Norrin Radd proper, in the main MCU, in the main 616 MCU, if that's what it's called, or the 1999-99, like most other places call it. So hopefully we do get an actual Norrin Radd Silver Surfer, and then maybe even Galactus proper finally, fully into this. Who knows what they plan on doing? Whether Galactus show up in this movie or he doesn't end up showing up in this movie. A different version of him does, or maybe it's the same version he gets pulled through to this universe. Who knows? Only time will tell. We'll see soon. But moving forward from here, 1 second here, guys. I'm doing all this talking and not having anybody to bounce off of. It's a little hard on the vocal cords and stuff, so bear with me. So moving on from here, actually, before we move on from here, there was another piece of news that I actually don't have a picture for, but there was something I did want to touch on really quick. So there was a story that came out recently in reference to IDW comic books, or IDW publishing rather. The story came out on the 4th of April in the afternoon, published by bleedingcool.com. It says major redundancies hit IDW Publishing tonight. It says, I am being told many redundancies tonight at IDW, the California-based comic book publisher and TV/movie producer. The article summary is that there's major layoffs reported at California's IDW Publishing, affecting various staff roles. Entire HR department at IDW Publishing disbanded, with finance and legal handling firings. Weird. Weird that finance would be handling the firings. I understand legal, but and then IDW Entertainment sees more departures, leaving only one development executive standing. IDW Publishing has reduced staff by 40% within a year, with ongoing exits and layoffs. This follows a series of redundancies and reorganizations last year at IDW. Sorry, I should have read this a little bit better when I first pulled it, but it seems as though IDW's cut around 40% of their staff in the last few years, and is continuing on in these last couple of weeks for the most part. IDW did make the tough but strategic decision to reduce 5 positions today. This is part of a strategy to create a more efficient IDW, and one that will be better able to delight fans for years and years to come. We are grateful for the years of commitment and hard work, and wish abundant success to those affected. So yeah, I mean, not something that anybody necessarily wants to hear. Somebody loses their job. Always sucks. But hopefully, hopefully it's for the better of the company. Hopefully, anybody that was affected didn't necessarily have any products they were heavily working on. Especially considering, if I'm not mistaken, they were just starting the Transformers G.I. Joe universe in the comics, the Energon universe. I know that was. Oh no, I take that back. Sorry, that's published by Skybound. So that's actually Robert Kirkman. So I thought. Either way, anybody who was affected, hopefully, they find, work elsewhere quick, and hopefully it doesn't end up creating too much of a hassle over there. But moving from the Marvel universe into the DC universe, so this is something that I found recently on the internet, which was interesting to say the least. So apparently, it's being said that James Gunn might be putting Bizarro in the new Superman movie, and changing the way that Bizarro sort of comes to be, and he's actually going to have a different name as well, which is unprecedented. So it says that Lex Luthor may clone Superman in James Gunn's movie, inspired by Silver Age comic, creating the character of Ultraman. Those unaware, Ultraman technically has an origin rooted in Earth 3, where he's Earth 3's evil Superman, evil Superman from Earth 3. But it's also supposed to be integrating Bizarro and Ultraman combines traditional Superman foes, blending evil Superman tropes in a new light. While fans debate the use of evil Superman concepts in the DCU, official sources have yet to confirm or deny it. So again, this is just a rumor. But then at the same time, I recently saw that James Gunn, I don't know if it was a tweet on X, but I for sure know that he wrote on Threads. He might have done it across all his social medias, but basically he was saying that the protagonist of Superman is going to be Superman, and the antagonist of Superman is going to be Lex Luthor. You know, that's a classic story, and it's almost like tale as old as time. It's Superman versus Lex, and it's his first outing in this new not his first outing, but our first time seeing Superman in this new DC universe, and it's telling a story of these two that are seemingly intertwined. They're two nemesis, so of course they're going to, dealing with one another. Now, whether or not that means I don't think he outright said that like he wasn't going to incorporate this at all into or any elements of this at all into the story. But at the same time, this kind of seems like it came out of nowhere. I don't, this might have been like a rumor or leak that came from an unknown source, basically. It would definitely be interesting to see Bizarro, but like I feel like with the stacked cast as well as the amount of cameos and characters that we're getting in this movie already, putting Bizarro in here so soon, especially given the sort of forward reception we got of the DCEU's version of Doomsday, which was basically in many ways almost like a clone of Superman, not directly, because obviously like it was actually Zod's dead body resurrected by Lex Luthor with Lex Luthor's DNA, like, and ended up creating Doomsday. It would be a little too. It seems like ill-advised for him to do something like that, something very similar, created by Lex Luthor to be an evil Superman in the very first Superman movie. You know what I mean? So, unless he's like, hey guys, this is how you really do this, maybe. But at the end of the day, I feel like Lex Luthor is a good villain for him to have. Maybe, hopefully, Lex in the freaking power armor suit. Lex in his war suit would be awesome. Him taking on Superman. Then again, like we already have like a Justice League type roster sort of joining this first movie. So like I feel like throwing like one more character in there is sort of to start overstepping. Now obviously we just know that these are we understand that these are going to be mostly cameos for the most part, so they might just be popping up, and then like the whole point of this was to sort of be like, I mean, it's not called Superman Legacy anymore, it's just called Superman proper, but the whole point of this movie was to be like, Superman contemplating what his legacy on Earth is, and like what it is that he's leaving behind, as well as what it is that he's doing for this world. And that could very much be, sort of shown through the eyes of other people, and like, hey, this is what Superman does for us, or what he means to us, whether it's regular people or his contemporaries in the Justice League. So. But yeah, so again, this is mostly just rumor. It's not necessarily, it's for sure not fact, even though it kind of gets reported on as being fact. It's definitely not. Staying on that Superman train again, another one that I don't think I have any pictures for. No, I don't. So, staying on the Superman train, the Superman family train rather. Following Millie Alcock being cast as Supergirl, looks like the Woman of Tomorrow, which is what the title is going to be. Supergirl, the Woman of Tomorrow. It's found as director, so they have picked Greg Gillespie as the director of Supergirl. Is known for directing Cruella and I, Tanya in the past few years. actually, reading this now, it says it is in talks to helm Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. There's no deal in place yet. The outlet claims the plan is to shoot this movie sometime in 2024's fourth quarter after Superman is finished filming. So it's understandable why efforts are being made to secure Woman of Tomorrow's director now. And if he ends up signing on, it'll mark yet another female-driven movie for him to tackle. Made his filmmaking debut with movies Mr. Woodcock, comedy, and Lars, Real Girl, was sort of a dramedy for the most part. His filmography also includes Fright Night, $1 Million Arm. Never heard of that one. The Finest Hours, last year's Dumb Money. Okay. Interesting. But yeah, the ones that really stand out to me are going to be Cruella and I, Tonya. Both like female-led movies. I, Tonya with, Harley Quinn herself, aka Margot Robbie. I've actually never seen these movies. To my understanding, these were, I, Tonya is obviously very female forward. It's very woman female story. Cruella de Vil is sort of a reinvention of the character, kind of showing us how she came to be, as well as like sort of redefining that character. So it seems like he can speak to the voice of women, which is weird to say because, man, speaking for women might not be the best look. You would think that maybe a Supergirl movie is directed and led by a female director, but I can't say anything because at the same time, if he's a good director and he can kind of help capture that voice very well, then why not give the job to him? It's the same for vice versa. Either way, that I don't really have much to say about that other than if he does end up getting the job or accepting the job, good luck to him, and hopefully does well with the movie because it seems like they have a lot riding on both Superman and Supergirl. And the way that Superman's sort of panning out, I'm really hoping, with Superman potentially being like the best way to kick off, help kick off the new DCU Supergirl as a follow-up to kind of help balance, if not maybe flip that on its head a little bit. No. But moving forward here, the next Star Wars movie just got officially announced. So this has been something that we've known for a while. This was technically announced a while back, but I think it finally got a release date. So the next Star Wars movie has been officially announced in the future theatrical release. The first movie since The Rise of Skywalker in 2019 is going to be The Mandalorian and Grogu. I believe that is the title of this movie. Obviously led by Pedro Pascal, and then the Baby Yoda, aka Grogu, puppet. Says Disney announced that the next Star Wars film, Mandalorian and Grogu, will blast into theaters May 22nd, 2026, so Memorial Day weekend in 2 years. It was previously announced that it was an upcoming film for Lucasfilm releasing during May 2026, but it was unknown which weekend it would hit. The direct had previously predicted May 22nd. That is based on untitled Star Wars release dates announced by Disney. Beyond the Mandalorian spin-off movie, yet to be titled project by Charmin Obaid-Chinoy, was announced, featuring Daisy Ridley's returning Rey and the first female director in the film franchise. Not true. He had, so the movie was never made, so I guess that's true. Female film director. The first one that was originally supposed to be in the film franchise was Patty Jenkins with Rebel Squadron, which, from what I understand, is actually coming out. Is actually going to be coming out this time. Like, she's coming back to work on it. Not much has been talked about it, but from my understanding, I think it's going to be coming much later than these films. So, meanwhile, Dave Filoni is working on an epic crossover, merging beloved characters from the Mandoverse into a theatrical event. And then finally, James Mangold's upcoming venture is expected to delve into the ancient origins of the Jedi, although its development is unclear due to Mangold's that being the Old Republic film that he's supposed to be working on. Excuse me. But yeah, Mandalorian Grogu, May 22nd, 2026. Awesome. Can't wait to see it. Sucks it's so far away, but I imagine they're still even just like working up the scripts. Obviously, James Gunn. Wow. I can't I think. Wow. I just completely blanked. I think Jon Favreau. I don't know. Obviously, this is being directed by Jon Favreau, who gave us, helped give us, the Mandalorian in general, as well as helped to kick off the Marvel universe, so the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I can't wait. I'm looking forward to this. I have no real qualms about it. This is obviously the more popular, and fairly well accepted Star Wars thing to come out in the recent last decade or so. So I would say that in Jon Favreau we trust, especially with Mando. So that being said, we're gonna stay in Star Wars universe. Move over to or do this actually. I'm gonna watch a couple of trailers that recently came out. One's a video game trailer, one is a TV trailer, which we will get started here.
Each of you represents some of the most powerful criminal organizations in the galaxy. Pikes, Crimson Dawn.
So, just a little bit of context. Here. So this is the first. This is not the gameplay, but this is the first story trailer for Star Wars Outlaws. I don't remember. I watched it recently, but I don't remember if it gave us a release date or if there was one previously given. So this just gives us a little bit of background on what to expect in the game in terms of stories. So.
Huts. It's a golden age for the underworld. The Empire controls every corner of the galaxy, but they're distracted by a rebellion that won't quit. It's an opportunity to make millions.
Okay, Vess. The underworld's favorite new scoundrel. We meet at last.
What do you want?
Zarek Besh. They're new, rich, and lethal. You crossed their boss, Slero, and now he wants you gone. Rob his fortune, buy your freedom.
This job, it's a death wish. I'm in. Out here.
So it seems so far that this does take place during the Age of Rebellion, as the Star Wars timeline calls it. So basically, this is the time, I would imagine, either during the original trilogy or the time leading up to the original trilogy. Most likely the time leading up to it, because the Crimson Dawn is still a thing here. But I don't remember. I don't think that was Kira that we saw. So in the beginning,
Here you live and die by your reputation. You want to survive? Know the players.
You're new to this world.
What's your problem?
Come back when you're not.
Jabba, right? Look, don't try anything. I got a whole crew surrounding the... Okay, we're skipping that part.
For about as long as I can remember, it's just been me and Nix. Doing what we have to survive. This job is my one shot at freedom. But if we're gonna pull this off, we need the right crew. And the right ship.
Ice game.
Yes! Hang on.
I hire you because you are one of the best hunters in the Outer Rim.
She's more connected than you let on, Slero. Bess is mixed up in something bigger.
The Outer Rim is a dangerous place. Everyone is fighting for their piece of the galaxy. But all I want is to live free. So I'm gonna risk it all. Hold on, Nick!
Star Wars Outlaws pre-order available now.
Okay. So yeah, so it's going to be available August 30th of this year. Give you the pre-order offer and everything. I mean, it looks like a pretty great. Like for the most part, it looks like a pretty great game. The graphics on it are pretty amazing. I mean, it's kind of what you come to expect nowadays, especially out of Star Wars games. I mean, the last two Star Wars games being Jedi Fallen Order and then Jedi Survivor, which technically, if I'm not mistaken, are canon to the current, Star Wars timeline or Star Wars universe. This seems like it's going to, this seems like it's going to be the same. At least I would imagine. There's referencing things that are, referencing things and people that are within, like I said, the Age of Rebellion timeline, which is, that time basically in the original trilogy and everything that kind of led up to it. I would imagine that this is everything that this was probably during the time that everything was leading up to, A New Hope or, Rogue One and A New Hope. I think obviously in the game we'll probably get more context as to just exactly when that is. But I mean, they're referencing Jabba the Hutt, they're referencing, the Pike Syndicates, Crimson Dawn, basically all the crime syndicate. And this seems to be sort of the dregs of what was supposed to be, what was it called? Basically, it was like a Star Wars underground game, underworld game. Basically, taking place like on the lowest or lower sectors of Coruscant, where it's like the most corrupt and shady and underhanded stuff goes on. So this seems to be either picking up where that left off, because it doesn't look like they're on Coruscant. This looks like it's going to be sort of a planet hopping sort of thing. So which is cool. We get a couple cast of characters, and I really like Nyx, her little pet. I don't know what what the species is, but it looks a lot like an axolotl, just like a giant axolotl on land. So more or less like a giant salamander, but still with the axolotl antennae. So that's cool. I like that. But we'll move into the next. The next trailer here.
Why do you seek Imperial favor?
Years ago, my people were
Oh,
all
wait.
but destroyed. My anger gives me strength. It is that strength I offer the Empire.
Offer accepted.
I'm here to present you with
On
an
Star Wars Day,
opportunity,
baby.
Eris.
Just be glad you're not a Jedi anymore.
Your path is set, Morgan Elsbeth. I will fulfill my destiny.
Mercy only breeds defeat. But I will help you overcome this weakness. Attack!
You said the Empire would help to change things.
Everything comes
Good
at a
night,
cost.
that is.
My world has been burning since I was a child. You cannot stop what has begun.
Now you must face one final test. To join us. It is time you meet your new master. Long live the Empire.
Ooh, man, that looks good. That looks really, really good. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to talk about this. I just want to get this graphic up. Man, oh man. 1 second here. Add this to the stage. Yes. Look at that graphic, baby. It looks so awesome. Especially the way that they introduced it in they introduced this title card in the video or in the trailer where it said Tales of the Jedi and it burned away and it said Tales of the Empire. So that's awesome. We're on Star Wars Day this year we get Tales of the Empire. I don't know if we get all of the episodes right away. If we do, freaking awesome, freaking sweet. And it's following the same formula as Tales of the Jedi, so it's only technically following two character stories, potentially through different parts of their life. So we get Tale of Morgan Elsbeth, her sort of origin before we know her, and then Barriss Offee basically not picking up where she left off, because there's a big gap of time between where she was in the Clone Wars series and where she ends up, what it looks like in this show. But her going to the Inquisitorium, like to be part of the Inquisitorius, or the Inquisitors rather, awesome. And then the fact that she's going to have to face Vader, I wonder if he is going to remember who she is. Because if he does, she is in for one hell of a test. Oh my God. Oh my God, oh my God. Oh my God, you lack conviction. She lacks conviction. He is going to show her just how unconvicted she is, how much she truly lacks in the dark side, trust me. Especially if he remembers who she is. That's going to be insane. Absolutely insane. So yeah, I can't wait for that. It's gonna be pretty awesome. But I want to say that this is the rest. That's the end of the news. So we're finally out of the news portion. So again, tons of news coming that just came out recently. Lots for us to talk about. Now We're going to jump into the meat and potatoes of the episode. Creme de la creme. The cream of the crop rises to the top. I don't have that sound, unfortunately. But I do have...
Good news, everyone!
Yeah, we know that. What have I got for this? I don't know. I could do this. But that doesn't help with the next thing I'm going to be talking about. Oh, well, screw it. We'll do it anyways. So, now we're moving into the reviews and everything. So, spoilers galore. I watched some stuff. Me and Bankai both have watched this, and we didn't discuss it 100%, but we talked a little bit about it, here and there outside of the podcast. So I'm going to run down, give my quick thoughts of what I've watched over the last week. So X-Men 97 keeps on, especially this episode 3. Technically, we get 2 storylines a little bit out of this one. We get a 2 for a little bit. It's almost like 2 separate episodes. Because, we got 15 minutes of one and like a little bit, like 15 minutes or so of the other. First part of the episode, I don't remember what it was called, but basically what ended up happening was it was like a reintroduction to Mojo World. So it turns out that it's Jubilee's birthday. They're going, they're celebrating her at the very beginning. She's got cake and whatnot, and she's being asked like, what is it that you want to do for your birthday? And she's like, oh guys, like I want to do it upright. I want to go to the arcade. I want to play a ton of video games. I want to have some fun. And then Magneto, no Diddy. Magneto is being sort of a sourpuss, and it's like, no, you have to train. We should be training during this free time type shit. So she's kind of like, I really don't want to do it, but fine. He's being kind of being a Debbie Downer, kind of bringing her down on her birthday type of stuff. So she goes up to her room, and Sunspot, aka Robert DaCosta, goes up there with her, kind of telling her happy birthday and whatnot like that, and they decide that they're going to blow off training, or she decides she's going to blow off training, and kind of talks Sunspot into playing some video games with her, because she has a shiny new, it almost looks like a Sega. I think it was supposed to be a Sega, if not a Sega, Nintendo for sure, like a Super Nintendo, on her dresser. So she assumes, oh, they surprised me after all. Like they got me a new game system. So she hooks it up and she starts playing, only for things to really get kind of funky. Her and Robert get sucked into the game. They kind of wake up not realizing that they're inside a game until they end up getting attacked and whatnot by various, we'll say, villains and characters throughout her memories and throughout her life and stuff. Come to find out, it's Mojo sent that to her in order to kind of try to get. And when you first see Mojo, he's like super like skinny and emaciated, very gaunt looking. And she even comments on it, and it's just like, you're not looking too good, lately. And he's just like, I feed on ratings, and I haven't had any good ratings lately, so I need something to beef me up. And pause, no pity. It was like,
Now, I tell you what, I like you, and I want you. Now, we can do this the easy way, or we can do it the hard way. The choice is yours.
He was basically giving her, a no-win scenario. It was just like, I don't care. Like, so basically what we're going to be doing is we created a video game with your memories, and you are going to have to play through all of them. And the ratings from this, kind of mirroring, it's both nostalgic and also sort of like a commentary on like what we're doing nowadays. Not a commentary per se, but like sort of given us like a look at what we're into today. So like a lot of people watch gamers. That was not a thing. If it wasn't a very huge thing in the 90s. Watching gamers and stuff, that really wasn't a thing. It definitely wasn't a career, that's for sure. So basically, like her and Sunspot are stuck in this game, and they're basically going through her memories, and she's fighting different foes and different stuff like that. And honestly, it's kind of nostalgic because like the graphics for a little while are looking a lot like the X-Men arcade game, which is my absolute favorite. I loved that so much. I used to spend so much money on that in the arcades. It's not funny. Anytime I've had the chance to like play it outside of an arcade, I've taken it because I love that game so much. If you know, I don't want to dive too deep into the discussion of it, but it's pretty awesome. Like you even see Magneto in there using the same attacks that he does in the game. It's so cool. It's really cool. Juggernaut, tons of freaking characters. Anything. More or less. So I mean, it kind of comes to a head where she, it's almost losing her life. But then she's like, her and Sunspot both already almost lose their life. But they end up getting saved by a future game version of herself. Kind of weird, but it made sense within the context of the story because it was like he basically made a model of her to test the game based on her memories. So it had her life experiences, her memories, and all this other stuff. But it was basically an AI version of her that had been through the game already and has like aged up, and so like kind of helped save herself from the game by like glitching the grid or whatever the hell you want to call it, and then kind of going in and helping her along, towards the end of it, and then eventually they all three sort of team up and then Mojo. Sorry, thinking of Mojo, the Green Lantern. Anyway, end up defeating Mojo. Which Spiral was also in the show a little bit. You see her kind of helping out. You see her like sick hands doing stuff, to help with the broadcast and stuff. I know the nasties, but helping with the broadcast and stuff. And eventually, like after Mojo, she kind of kicks him out of his chair, like, takes over potentially. No. That's the first half of this episode. Second half is called Life Death, and any fans of X-Men for any period of time know that this was almost one for one from the comic to the TV show, where we leave Storm, I think after episode 3, was that she met Forge at a bar, and he was telling her, hey, I think I can help you get your powers back. So it appears that there's been some time to pass by with them because now she's living with them. They're seemingly working on a way to get her powers back. And through all this, he's kind of like, they're getting to know one another. They're getting to know each other. And he's, he tells her like, hey, I'm a veteran of war. I've been in wars and I lost things, meaning like he's an amputee. He like lost a leg, he lost an arm, because of it. And so he's like, I know what it feels like to lose something. He's like, and for the longest time, the way my powers work, anything I can imagine, I can make. But technology hasn't always been up to par in order for me to make it. So I've kind of spent my time waiting and biding time and working on things and even helping to bring some things into existence. Basically, they sort of get very close, seeming like they're going to have like sort of a connection. Well, they definitely have a connection, seeming like they're going to eventually have a relationship. But that's kind of where things not turn left. They seem to sort of rather than going down the route of actually having a relationship, you can definitely tell that there's a connection there and that they both have feelings for one another. But eventually it gets to the point where we learn that while Forge didn't, at least in the show, Forge didn't directly make the gun and the bullet that essentially took away her powers, he helped to develop the technology, specifically the technology to create the Sentinels that eventually lead to her, eventually lead to the creation of, the gun, the bullet, or whatever that takes away her powers. That technology is more or less kind of because of him. And he tries to justify it and saying, "Look, I was lost. I was in a place where I was very angry. I was angry at the world, but really I was angry at myself. And I thought that because of mutant kind that because I was the way I was because of mutant kind, not realizing that, like, more or less trying to tell her, like, more or less trying to justify why he did what he did." And it's kind of relatable because anybody sort of in that situation, I'm sure, would be angry at the world and sort of see things differently. Especially during that time when you're younger, more naive, and especially mad at the world and feeling like you've been cast out, especially from people of your own kind. So that's fairly understandable for the most part. But in the same token, like, so far, Storm, she's lost quite a bit, but she hasn't turned her back on time type of deal, and she felt like she would never do so. So after a failed attempt at him trying to heal her, and then a failed attempt at him sort of reconciling with her, she goes to run away, but then we actually find out that she hasn't really technically run away, because it looks like she is going to be getting trapped by Amal Farouk, aka Shadow King. And that's basically where this story leaves off at. So tomorrow, brand new episode. I'm sure they'll be touched on it some more. I think this was Life and Death Part 1. So insane, awesome, awesome storytelling so far. Good tugs to the, like, nostalgia, especially in this first part of the episode. Continuing to give us, good writing and good storytelling in general, especially when it comes to the latter half of the episode. So if you're not watching X-Men 97, you have to watch. I'm going to be touching a little bit more on this a little bit later. We have a little bit of something funny to talk about. So we'll touch on this a little bit later. But moving forward, I got to start zooming through these. I know I'm taking a long time, although this is going to be taking a while to talk about. So Invincible Season 2 has come to a close, and our final episode came out last Thursday, titled "I Thought You Were Stronger Than Me," or "I Thought You Were Strong." If you have ever read the Invincible comics, you know what this is in reference to. Boy, oh boy, I have very mixed feelings about this episode. I've some mixed feelings about this season in general, just because I feel like I felt like it was a little rushed, but at the same time, like, I think within the context that they made this season, especially in reference to, like, season 1, where they definitely shortened some things, both for timing as well as, like, helping to move the story along at a better pace. I feel like season 2 definitely did that, but also at the same time, the pacing of it in general seems like it was kind of off. I almost would have preferred that this this episode would have ended different. So how the story starts, it picks up from where we left off in episode 7, which was at the end. He was getting a call from his mom, and then he picks up the phone, and it's not his mom, it's Angstrom Levy. saying, I've got your mom, I've got your little brother. You need to come here now before I start hurting them, basically. So he gets there. They have a little bit of a spat at first. Mark doesn't recognize who he is. He's like, how can you not recognize me? Blah, blah, blah. I'm your nemesis, this and that. Almost like the spot argument with Miles Morales in Across the Spider-Verse. Also with a very similar power set. I wonder if they did that on purpose. Maybe. Especially there's something else that happens in this episode, which I'll talk about in a second here. So basically, they get the arguing. Mark attempts to stop him, but as soon as he does that, Angstrom Levy opens a portal, sends him to another dimension. And so this happens multiple times, where each time he's brought back to his home dimension, they argue a bit, and then Mark goes for him and gets sent away. Very much the same as it happened in the comic books. However, the pacing in this episode again is off, because in the comic book some of this drug out quite a bit. Specifically, one moment when he gets into another dimension. In the comics, it's very, very 100% that character, whereas in the show, it is an homage to that character, and for obvious reasons. So, in the comic books, one of the dimensions that Invincible gets sent to is actually a Marvel universe. They say a Marvel universe because they don't know if it's going to mean 616 continuity universe, or if it was just another Earth that Spider-Man exists on. Either way, he gets it sent, and it basically comes into contact with Spider-Man. If I'm not mistaken, I want to say that was a whole issue to itself. Whereas this was just like, it was a couple minutes long, not much happens in it, other than Invincible talks to Agent Spider, which is not, has similarities to Spider-Man. He has the web slinging, he has the wall crawling. He's in not a secret agent suit, but he's in like a different suit. You know, it's not at all an homage to Spider-Man for the most part, other than maybe the goggles, but he has it's A on his chest for Agent Spider. He's got the web slinging, like I said, the wall crawling and stuff like that. He's fighting Professor Octopus, or as he calls him, Prof Ock. Obvious, connection, or not obvious connection, obvious homage to Doc Ock and Dr. Octopus. Mark fights him for a second, and then eventually he does ends up getting sent or brought back to the home universe. Each time, Mark sort of prepares. He starts getting used to it and preparing each time that he, gets brought back and stuff. And he's trying to take advantage of that to like hurt Angstrom Levy, or to at least start fighting him and stuff. As well, there's a couple of times where Angstrom Levy is threatening his mom and his brother, and even to a point where Debbie's trying to talk to Angstrom Levy and trying to explain to him that the mark that you're talking about. And by the way, Angstrom Levy, because his brains got scrambled and everything like that, he believes that the mark of this dimension is the same as the mark in every dimension. Because apparently this is the only dimension where Mark is good. But in all the other ones, he's evil. Or, if not evil, he technically, honors his father's wishes of, being, a Viltrum agent on Earth and helps conquer it or whatever. So basically Debbie's trying to tell him this is not that mark. He has sworn that he will never be like his father. He won't be. He's never killed anyone. And Angstrom is not having that answer or whatever. And eventually Debbie tries to stop him, gets in his way, and then he like breaks her arm. Mark comes back and is like incensed. He's like, you effing hurt my mother. He almost killed my brother. He freaking. They start, he pulls him into a portal. I think they end up fighting for a while together. Angstrom Levy is like telling him like, that's the reason I've been sending you to all these different dimensions, so that by the time I get to you, you're weakened and blah blah blah. And he's fighting him. Eventually, they get to like almost like a barren land, a barren dimension for the most part. And then Angstrom makes the mistake of saying that he will kill everyone that Mark loves. And Mark, the Viltrumite in him, snaps in, and he's just like, no, the F you won't. No, you won't, and I'll make sure of that. So he beats him to a bloody pulp, and then keeps on going further and further and further and further until Angstrom Levy is not fighting back anymore, and he just straight up unalives him. He's gone, and he's the first. That's the first person that Mark has ever unalived. Helped him finish with all his living. So Mark, he kind of comes to a realization. He's like, what did I do? And he's like, I thought you were stronger than that. And that's because Ancient told him, I've been powered up and this and that and blah, blah, blah. They put me back together, and, they enhanced me and all this other stuff. He was giving them the business for a little bit, but he was not enough for, that Viltrum heritage. Once it took over, So Mark unalives him, says, I thought you were stronger, kind of snaps to his senses and realizes that he has no way back. Now, it is at this point, I feel like they should have cut to black in the next season on Invincible type of deal. But no, they wrapped it up right away. They resolved that issue very quickly. Now, I want to say that it sort of happened that I can't remember 100%, but I think it sort of happened this way in the comics. But I feel like in order to sort of change things and sort of maybe even build hype for season 3, they should have ended it there and then opened with what they did to resolve this issue. But yeah, so the way that they resolved this issue is the way that they resolved the issue in the comic, which was apparently Mark had been gone so long that the Guardians of the Globe continue to save the Earth without Invincible. Apparently it's a very rough future for them. They don't go into any explanations. You see older characters, so like you got Rudy, who's being called Rex now at this point because he's a clone of Rex technically. You got Rudy, who's older, as robots. Adam Eve is there. She's a little bit older. You got a couple other characters who are new to the roster. And I think you got Bulletproof, who's also older. They come flying through an Angstrom Levy portal, and at first when he sees that, he thinks that, oh shit, there's either he's really alive somewhere else or there's another Angstrom Levy out there. But it ends up being them coming through that portal. They tell him that we're here to save you. You've been gone so long. Now, finally, by the time that the way that we're coming to you, time travel is like, or not time travel, but dimensional, so like hopping or whatever is like a thing. And they're like, so what we're going to do, we're going to send you back, but we're going to be sending you back to your time. But you can't, like, we're not going to give you any information about the future type of deal. And so it's towards the end, right before he goes through the portal, Adam Eve goes to him, hugs him, and is telling him like, Mark, I love you. I've always loved you, but I need you to tell me that you do, because otherwise, like, it is a long and arduous journey for me to get to that point. Now, this is the part where I don't remember exactly how it happened in the comics. He gets home, starts wrapping everything up. Mom gets taken to the facility or whatever like that. Gets help, get healed, and blah blah blah. They start repairing the house and all this other junk. Mark he comes to the realization that he is going to drop out of college. Tells his mother that she's not happy, but she understands why he's doing it. Mark goes to see Adam Eve. He starts to tell her kind of. He almost says like he's like, I have something I have to tell you, like kind of tell her that he loves her or whatever, and then he stops himself and doesn't say anything. Now, I don't remember 100% if that happened in the comics. I want to say that it did, but something's telling me that that's where it departs. Is that I thought he told her that he did, but I do remember that there is a little bit more that goes on between him and Amber. I feel like at some point in this. So I don't know if there's more that goes on between him and Amber. And then that's when he ends up going to Adam Eve, but I don't remember. I really don't. It's been a while since I've heard this story. But that's kind of, like I said, I feel like this is something that would have been better off as like an episode 1 for next season. But this is my opinion. Overall, it was still good. I just felt like leaving it on a cliffhanger probably would have been better. So that's just my opinion of that. That's it for Invincible. Moving on forward, man, guys. Anka and I have been talking this show up since the beginning, and yet again, this show has not been disappointing at all. The only thing I'm upset about the show is that I think it's ending next week. There's a new episode out today. I haven't watched it yet, so I can't comment on that, but I will be talking about the episode that aired last week. I don't remember what the name of this episode was, but I want to say that this is episode 7. That I'm going to be talking about. The one out today, I think it's episode 8. Next week is episode 9. And it's either the end of the season or potentially the end of the series. Suck, because I just want to live in this world, one season at a time every year until it ends. But it's so good. It's just overall, it's just so good in general. And like honestly, this episode, as much drama as there was in it, there was a lot of comedy, I feel like, in this. Now, it's not comedy in the like, haha, yuck, yuck sort of sense. It's sort of like comedy as in like, there's a couple characters in here. There's a lot of pettiness for sure going on in this episode between a bunch of the characters. A lot of pettiness, a lot of shit talking for sure. And then something that happens at the very end that is just like, bro. So basically, this episode starts with Lord Tornaka and his forces meeting his brother, whose name escapes me. I don't remember. Meeting technically his half brother, meeting his half brother and his forces because they want to basically join. Well, Tornaka wants to join forces with him in order to take on the regents and like the forces in Osaka, basically, and then they have an idea for Crimson Sky. This idea called Crimson Sky that is basically going to help them take over Osaka like quick, fast, and in a hurry. So like they meet up. At first, it's kind of tense, and then like the brother cracks a joke. Very haha moment between them. Very like, okay, tension relief. Hey, come on, let's, we'll have a feast for you. we'll get drunk, we'll talk some shit, and then tomorrow we can talk. We can talk business type of deal. So they go, they do that. They're having a feast. The brother's sitting there. They're all drinking sake. They're all having a good time. The brother starts telling stories about Toranaga when he was younger, what it was like growing up with him, this and that, or technically growing up without him, because for a long time Toranaga was a hostage of another family, another clan, before he gains power and everything. So, and they're just, he's talking, and then eventually it gets to a point where instead of like laughing and having a good time with everyone, it kind of starts seeming like his brother is now starting to directly talk shit to him and like chastising and making fun of him for some shit. And then, it gets to the point where his brother's just like, what did you bring me here for? Let's talk about what you need from me. And Toranaga's just like, no, like tonight's just all about having fun and good ribbing and this and that. Let's just have a good time. And his brother's just like, no, I think we should talk. And they start talking, and then eventually his brother's just like, well, here's the thing. I already gotten an offer, and I took it. And that offer was to be the regent on the council, basically taking your spot. And I've actually come here, and you start seeing his forces sort of like stirring, moving into position. And I've come here to basically arrest you and bring you back to Osaka as my captive, so you can answer for your crimes against the council, type of shit. And they're just like, what the fuck? It's just like, so it's like, you got two choices here as I see it. Either you come willingly, or I take you back there by force. And then so Toranaga's just like, all right, well, I didn't see that coming, but I should have. Let me give you an answer by tomorrow at sundown. So you basically get, Toranaga's contemplating. A lot of his men are like trying to talk to him, trying to come up with a solution. He's not wanting to hear any of it. More or less, it kind of seems like he feels like he's defeated and like he wants to give up. He just won't hear anybody's suggestions at all. His son's trying to talk to him. He won't listen to the son, basically telling him, like, you're an idiot. You've never. His son seems to like only want war. He's just like, only a man who's never been to war would want war. He's like, you've never fought before in your life. It's like, if you've ever been in a war, you would know that it's something that you want to avoid at all costs. Type of deal. And then not a whole lot with Anjin at this point, other than like just kind of him being the fish out of water and, at the banquet and stuff like that. And then after seeing everything that's been going down, eventually it comes to sunset, and then his, Toranaga's brother comes to him and their council or whatever to get his answer. And Toranaga straight up and down says, I'm submitting myself to you as your prisoner to take me back to Osaka. And then this is when Anjin sort of pipes up, and it's just like, this is all horseshit. This is all fucking horseshit. I came to be, I came here to be, your, general or whatever, like, to be your, to a great man, and I submitted myself to you and this and that. And you're just giving up blatantly, and then all these men are just gonna fucking sit right by here and just just listen to it and just go along with it. And you're all gonna fucking die. And that's it. And he walks away. Excuse me. Obviously, none of them really understand him other than when he says, you'll all die. Says that in Japanese. So then cut to his brother is at the tea house with not a consort, but I forget what they call basically a woman of ill repute, so to speak, at the tea house at the the Willow or something, the Willow of the World or something, some crap like that. He's there, having himself a good old time with one of the top earners there, if you know what I'm saying.
Mommy's always on top.
Daddy?
and eventually, so he's there. He's got men not surrounding him in there, but guarding the doors and stuff like that. And then so I can't remember what his son's name is. I had his name in my head for a while and I can't remember it now. But so Toranaga's son didn't want to take this shit lying down. He's been gung ho about having a glorious death and all this other stuff. So he takes it upon himself to him and his men attack his uncle's men. He gets some of they end up taking some of his guards out and stuff like that. He goes to take out his uncle. He kind of he ends up sort of starting to run away from him. And the whole time they're like making it look like Toranaga's son is going to freaking get him, and he almost does. And then this dumbass freaking slips on a damn rock. It's like raining, by the way, at this point. It's like raining, coming down hard. He's chasing him outside. He slashed him a couple of times. Excuse me. Toranaga's brother has fallen and is like crawling away, trying to get away from him. And then Toranaga's son gets close enough and goes to like slash him or stab him with his katana, steps on one of the stepping stones and slips either on the rock or like on moss on the rock, slips, falls back, cracks his neck, like completely snaps his neck, or like I don't remember if he snaps his neck, take that back, but he definitely hit the back of his head hard enough for him to start bleeding out, and then like choking on his blood, and then just dies. And his uncle looks to him and is just like, so is this the beautiful death you were looking for? And bro, like the show came to a screeching halt. I was like, what? Man, what an idiot. For real, an idiot. Like the whole time your dad's been telling you, like, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're saying. Like, you're part of the reason why we're in this mess to begin with, because you killed somebody you weren't effing supposed to. And now he's gone after his uncle to kill him for betraying his dad, only for him to get unalived himself. And not even like in a glorious way, not by like fighting, not by the sword, not committing seppuku, none of that. Slips on a rock and dies in a failed attempt to unalive somebody else. Bro, really? Oh, this is horrible. Absolutely horrible. Horrible way to die. And it was at that point I laughed because it was like, this is ridiculous. I cannot believe that this dummy had the audacity, had the cojones to do this, and then fail so miserably. Like, his father was right. He is a damn moron. Like, it's so ridiculous. But, I mean, that just goes to show, like, the sort of range that this show has. Like, where, like I said, this was definitely, like, there's a lot of trauma in the episode, but it was very comedic in the way that it was shown and told, because, like, a lot of it comes from his brother, sort of being petty, and petty towards Lord Tornaga, as well as his men, and like just the amount of shit talking that was being held, and then just for it to end in such an unglorious way like this, you can't help but laugh because it's like, bro, you effed up. And then on top of that, I want to say that this is Jordan's only son. He doesn't even have an heir to his clan, his state, to stake his claim and stuff. So you just gotta look now. That really sucks. But yeah, overall episode was great. Can't recommend this show enough. A lot of people have been talking about it, and for good reason. Moving on from there, I finally got caught up with Bad Batch. They released 2 episodes last week and 1 the previous week. All 3 of which I hadn't watched until past weekend. Don't remember what episode technically it is. Might be episode 6 or 7? No. I think it was 5, 6, 7, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think that's what it is. So episode 5, we get introduced to Ventress so she makes a return. The Batch, she ends up coming upon the Batch. Nobody really knows how or why. But we end up finding out why, but nobody knows how she did it. But really, I guess she got intel from Fennec Shand about them, and so then she kind of appears, basically to kind of assess Omega's M count, so to speak, or at least how powerful of an M count she might have, and to even potentially take her away from the Batch and train her herself. But I mean, for the most part, that is kind of the bulk of the episode, is Asajj testing testing Omega, and she kind of tells her, she ends up lying to her and telling her, like, yeah, I guess your M count's not that high and it's not that strong. Your connection to the Force isn't that strong, but in actuality, she knows that it actually is much higher and is a fairly strong connection, and that's obviously the reason why the Empire wants her. So she sort of resorts to telling the Batch, like, hey, you guys don't have what she needs in order for her to, train this and hopefully become, A, more powerful, and B, in order to train how to use this. But, like, that's a decision you and her are going to have to make. So, like, I'll be around type of deal. That was episode 5. Episode 6. I really don't remember what happened in episode 6, unfortunately. Oh, no. So episode 6, we actually end up following Emery. So it's the older clone female that is working with the doctor. You kind of see, so she's getting put in charge of Nala Se's project, which is basically to test the M count and stuff of not clones this time, but actual, like, not younglings, there's no Jedi Order, but like young people, so children basically of different species and stuff that actually have tested positive for an M count. And you kind of see that she doesn't actually want to do this. She sort of goes along with it at first, but she has, like, a conscience. She is starting to think differently about this. Her boss had told her, like, do not make attachments with these subjects. And so far as, to basically going as far as to tell her, like, oh, use their subject designation or blah, blah, blah. But then, when she's alone with them, they're telling her their names, and she actually uses their names. Basically kind of making that connection with them. in the end, she finds the doll that Omega had when she was in captivity, that she had stored away. She gave it to one of the little girls that is in captivity that she's overseeing now. So we kind of see that, like, okay, maybe she's a potential ally to Omega and the Batch if they do end up coming to Tantus or wherever their facility is. And then this past episode, the very last episode, not the very last episode, because I think there's still an episode or two more, but the final episode of last week was one of the Spec Ops soldiers or whatever like that ends up tracking down the Batch to the planet that they've been on and basically been on in between missions and stuff, and basically calls in the cavalry and gets a squad of troopers to help capture them. To which I think Wrecker gets taken out in terms of like he gets incapacitated. They incapacitate Hunter for a little bit, and so Omega and Crosshair decide that like Omega's going to allow herself to be captured, and is basically going to rely on Crosshair to get a tracker put onto the ship or whatever that's going to be taken off. So she surrenders herself, and basically Crosshair goes to try and get a spot to shoot on a tracker or whatever, but gets overrun by like a bunch of troopers, and he eventually takes them out and gets a clear shot. But right before he can get the shot off, they zoom out of there, and so he ends up missing the shot. So now Omega's getting taken to Tantus on a ship that doesn't have a tracker, so they can't track it going. But chances are, I feel like Omega had another plan in mind just in case, because she originally, said that she would take a tracker with her, and Crosshair was just like, no, it's not going to work because we'll check you and take it out, take it away from you. So still feel like maybe she's going to end up having a tracker and put on so that she's able to, have the Batch come, save her and help them liberate the other clones and stuff. But I think we'll see. But yeah, and I think so. New episode. I don't think it's the last episode yet. I think that the last episode is going to end in the middle of this month, if not maybe towards the end of this month. So that basically goes leading into May the 4th, which we'll get the Tales of the Empire. Next up is Ninja Kamui. This show continues to impress the hell out of me because it's doing a lot of stuff that anime does well. It seems like none of the things anime does. Graphics on it are still awesome. The fight scenes are pretty awesome. Even the slow parts to it, they're slow, but it's not like filler. It actually gives us more background into inside of these characters, and like helps to develop the story more. So there was a new episode that just came out this past Sunday. Talk about that one in a second. I'm trying to remember what the previous week's episode was, which I want to say it was basically okay. So it was Egon and the ninja we're calling Emma, who was part of this, or not in the CIA, but rather she was Mike's partner from the FBI, but she was only impersonating that person. So they're together. They're trying to basically get out of House's city, so that they can make a plan to then infiltrate other facilities and help to take them down outside of that city and stuff. trying to remember exactly what ended up happening. I know that they ended up fighting someone, but I can't remember who. But that episode ended with them eventually getting out of the city, and then actually ended up meeting up with Mike, and then I don't remember the guy who was with, but an ex-employee of Auza. They ended up meeting up with them. And then this previous episode, the one that I actually just watched it yesterday, but it just came out on Sunday. It catches up with them. They're all kind of catching up with one another. They're basically starting to make a plan in order to take down Auza. They begin implementing that plan, but somehow one of the ninjas that is in the Kusoku gear from the organization ends up finding them and attacking before they ended up getting a plan going. And then eventually Egon gets in his Kusoku gear and takes out this guy as the black dude with the long eraser haircut with the fade, the one who gets a fresh fade every day apparently. So he eventually beats them, and he goes to accept a death, and he's like, okay, this is an honorable way to die, you're an honorable opponent type of deal. Then when Egon goes to stab him to kill him, or to unalive him rather, the founder, whoever he is that works at Auza or works for Auza that basically helped to create these suits, goes to self-destruct it, which he's just like, what a bastard! This is a dishonorable way to die. But yeah, he goes to self-destruct it, and then Emma encases Egon with a shield, and forces Mike and the other guy to stay back somehow. Well, I think it was different other robots or other or whatever, basically helping push them farther away. And basically, she ends up taking the brunt of the blast. So then she is gone. She has a couple of moments to talk to Egon and Mike, and then she's gone. Basically, she tells Egon to keep on going, continue going forward. Again, nothing bad to say about the show. Everything yes, it does kind of slow down at points, but for the most part, it's pretty action packed. There's a lot going on with it that is all really awesome and really good. The only real gripe I have about this show is that it goes by super quick. It's not a full 30-minute show. It's literally probably it's maybe 22 minutes, and then at times it feels like it's maybe only 15, because it goes by in a snap. It goes by so fast. But it is really good. I know that there's another episode coming out next week, and I want to say that might end up being the final episode of the season. I don't know 100% because I don't know how many episodes it's supposed to be. But next episode is episode 10. So the way that animation's been lately, especially American animation, they usually keep it to about 10 episodes. So I guess hopefully it goes on longer, because it is a really good show. Not same as Shogun, just I want to live in this world, can keep on living in this world a little bit. So moving forward, let's. I'm just going to touch on this very briefly because my boy's not here. I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit more next week for sure. This next episode, but we just give this a quick little intro. That's gonna be the new intro for whenever we talk about some wrestling stuff, specifically for and requested by Bonk Denver. But so this weekend was, this past weekend was WrestleMania 40, aka WrestleMania XL. There was a lot going on. The main highlights and the main things that I'm going to be talking about really quick right now, and just kind of spoiling it for you guys, is Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch, right? Yes, Becky Lynch was on night one, and my girl,
Mommy's always on top.
Mommy's always on top, and she came out on top on this one too. So she ended up pinning Becky Lynch, shutting her up for good, or at least for now, and she continued to defend her title as the Women's World Champion. So that's awesome, and I think she's done it now for over a year, if I'm not mistaken, they said. Also happening in night one, you got the double match or tag team match. I don't know what it was technically, but it was Roman Reigns and The Rock versus Seth freaking Rollins and Cody Rhodes. So that was basically the match that was going to determine the rules for the next night's match between either Roman and Cody or Roman and Seth, I believe. So that ended up with Roman and Rock beating Cody and Seth. So then I believe the way that it worked was that they got to choose who it was that was fighting, whatever. Either way, so then we move into night two. Did this happen in night two? I'm trying to remember. It was LA Knight and Drew McIntyre. And then LA Knight ended up beating McIntyre. I don't remember now. I literally just watched it yesterday and I thought I had it up here, but I lost it. So I'm sure that, Bonkai is going to correct me the next time I talk to him, or when we talk about this next week, we'll talk about it some more. But then obviously the main event of the night was Cody versus Roman Reigns. And it was a wild fight. From what I've heard, it was overbooked, but it was overbooked in the best way, because it started off with Roman Reigns and Cody going at it, and then eventually, I don't remember who it was, somebody from the bloodline came and started helping Roman. Then eventually, I think somebody came out to help Cody. They got knocked out. Rock came out. Oh, take it back. Roman's helper got knocked down or knocked out, and then Roman got seemingly knocked out by Cody, and then Rock came out to help Roman. Put some things on Cody for a bit, and then Seth freaking Rollins came out. Rock put the things on him for a second, and then there was a pause through this. We got the gong of the dead man himself, Undertaker. Stadium went black for a second. Lights came back up. Undertaker is behind Rock. Rock turns around, sees Undertaker, goes to hit him, and then Undertaker freaking hems him up by the neck, picks him up, and then choke slams him, taking the Rock out, and then gong freaking, goes black again, and then lights come back up, and Undertaker's gone. So that's saying that Undertaker's going to be back in WWE, which is wild. It is absolutely wild, because he hasn't been retired as long as Rock and John Cena have. Oh shit! Cena came in. Cena did come in. He did some shit too. Yeah, Cena came in at one point during this did some shit, and then I think ended up getting like pushed out or whatever. I think that's when Rock eventually came out, because they did have a little spat back and forth. Seth came out, got smacked up really quick, and then that's when Undertaker came out. But yeah, so they said that Undertaker is back in WWE, which is insane because he has retired not super long ago, but he's seemingly going to be back in it now. I'm a fan of Undertaker. I always kind of have been. But like, so I've listened to a lot of stuff, a lot of like podcasts and interviews that he's done in the time since he's been out of the WWE. But like, he's gone through a lot physically in the WWE, to the point where he's had to have multiple surgeries and he's still not to 100%. So the fact that he's coming back to do this again is wild. Right? Like, I'm just curious to see what they plan on doing with him going forward. Is he going to be, you know, making appearances back in the ring, or is he mainly coming to be like a personality or something? So who knows? It'd be interesting to see. But that's my quick and dirty coverage of WrestleMania. Again, I only really watched highlights. I didn't go deep dive and watch the whole thing. I will end up probably watching the whole thing before next week. But I just really wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit. I really kind of hoped that Bonkai would be here so we could talk about this with him. But again, like I said, you know, most colonoscopies, man, what are you going to do? They take it out of you, apparently. Just hasn't bounced back yet. But that pretty much brings us towards the end of the episode. And I have a new segment that we have been working on. We just haven't done anything with it yet. Give me a second. Actually, yeah, we'll just do that. Sure. Should have done this beforehand, but I didn't think about it until now. So here we go. Why not? But so we're getting to the latter half, or the very end of this episode, and there's just some stuff I really wanted to talk about. Let's get this going here. So,
you know what really grinds my gears?
You know what really grinds my gears? We're going to be doing this little bit here from Family Guy, because this is something that we like to touch on from time to time, right? So, you know what really grinds my gears? I made this little meme. What really grinds my gears is...
You know what really grinds my gears?
What really grinds my gears is that there's all of these quote-unquote X-Men fans out there now that are complaining about X-Men 97. And they're complaining about it, saying that it's woke. Have you never watched the X-Men show, the original one? Any of the newer ones? Have you ever read an X-Men comic book? Have you ever heard any of the interviews by Stan Lee specifically about the X-Men? It's very clear within the confines of the stories, as well as like from what Stan has said. Now, obviously, a lot of people like to say, well, Stan embellished things and he used to say things that weren't necessarily true. I want to say in this instance, they were true, because there are clear parallels here. X-Men's always been woke. It's blatantly about the civil rights movement, especially in the 60s when it first came out. Charles Xavier was a clear homage to was a clear homage to Martin Luther King Jr. And Magneto was very much an homage to Malcolm X. Now, obviously, kind of sucks that you don't have actual colored people in these contexts or in these roles within the context of the stories. But it was an allegory, right? It was, or not an allegory, but it was like it was an homage. It was like sort of saying, hey, there's something different about these people, and what sets them apart, what makes them different, makes them unique, and makes them worthwhile to be a part of society. Just because they're different doesn't make them, aberrations, or doesn't mean that they aren't people, type of deal. You know what I mean? Now, it's not exactly one-to-one, but there's definite symmetry between, like, the civil, especially like in the old X-Men comics. There's definite symmetry between the civil rights movement and like the mutant movement, so to speak, in Marvel. It's always sort of been that way, and everything within the context of mutants in general is moving towards like awareness that just because people are different doesn't mean that doesn't make them wrong or evil or like somebody that you should fear. That's always been the message of mutants. That was always the philosophy and the philosophy and movements of Charles Xavier is that we can coexist with one another. We just have to find common ground. We have to find common ground so that we can coexist with one another and live together peacefully. And there is a peaceful way to do this. That's always been the message of the X-Men. And that was always the message of the civil rights movement, as well as, like the Black Lives Matter movement, and any sort of, whether it was a movement or, anything that has, you can, kind of fit that in wherever women's suffrage, Zoot Suit riots and like the Latino rights movement, everything along those lines, you can sort of fit the X-Men into that sort of space. That's sort of what it's symmetrical to, and it's always been woke. It's always been that way. If you were a fan of this stuff at all, you would know that. But just because like people put different labels on things in something from what you knew it as from back in the day, doesn't mean that it was always that way. So, like, yes, in one thing I think that people hold in contention here is that in the new series, Morph is considered non-binary. Now, within the show, they have not said that at all. They haven't said it at all. They haven't said, like, they didn't preach a point about it. They didn't, like, make a point about their pronouns, or they didn't make it a point about like Morph's character at all. Morph is technically an amorphous character. He doesn't have, they don't have a specific shape. They can take on any form that they want. And in this, like within the context of this series, they've taken on various different forms, whether it was as Colossus or as Magic or Magneto or both male and female characters. So it doesn't really make sense as to why that wouldn't reflect within their. It doesn't even necessarily reflect within their personality, but like it reflects like who they are as a mutant and as a person. There was no like big thing about it. The only thing that people were probably seemingly mad about is that this was confirmed outside of the series. And really, it was also kind of confirmed. It's confirmed every time in the, I think in the end credits, and I don't remember 100%, but I want to say that it uses their pronouns as, they, them type. It doesn't list it, but it says their power type of deal. Now, outside of that, like I can't say that I'm somebody who is wholly justifies people having different pronouns and stuff like that. But the fact that people are getting upset about something that was always sort of like out there, as well as, and claiming it to be woke, and this is something that was always sort of the case with the X-Men in general. Now, like, again, like, you can't sit here and say that like one's not a parable for the other, because they always kind of have. And especially when it like they've made various changes within the series to reflect really the reality of these characters for the most part. I mean, like, one thing is like they made Storm like darker skinned, because in the comics she technically is a darker skinned, black woman, where people are under the impression that she wasn't a black woman. I mean, she's literally from Africa. She doesn't have a necessarily African accent, but she does speak in a way that somebody who was born in Africa and had African parents, especially living in America, will speak English. Like, she has that sort of diction. She sounds that way. And again, in the comics, she's always been a darker skinned African American woman. Like, actually, not even African American, an African woman. So, like, there's no reason for her to be my skin tone in the original. And when that's something that you can improve upon and fix in the sequel series. There's no reason to get upset about it. Again, Morph being a person without a gender, or with that's technically non-binary, makes sense because they can be any of them. So it doesn't really matter whether they take a form of a male or a female, if they can literally do that at will. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what any of the other complaints are. Like, I don't see what there could be complaints of, because so far I haven't seen anything that's quote unquote woke in this that hasn't been in X-Men series, the animated series, like in the early 90s, in any of the X-Men series that have come after that, or in any of the X-Men comics. I'll get off my soapbox for now, but just to kind of sum it up, X-Men has always quote unquote been woke. There's no reason why anybody should get upset about it. It's always going to be that way. And if you're upset about this now, then I would argue that you've probably never been a fan of X-Men before. So that, ladies and gentlemen,
You know what really grinds my gears?
is what really grinds my gears. Let's just give this let's get this a quick look. Okay, so if you guys know this SpongeBob meme, it says X-Men fans with the quotation marks around it. X-Men 97 is woke. Disney ruins everything. I mean, X-Men 97 is woke. Disney ruins everything. Like, yeah, guys, just let it go. It's the X-Men. This is literally a fictional series. Like, these things aren't real. Like, yes, they have parables for things that are real in real life, and if that upsets you, then maybe I would argue that maybe you have some issues that you really need to figure out that are outside of, that take place, or that have something to do with something outside of this fictional series. But that's all I got for today, folks. It's been a pretty long episode. We're here at 2 hours. Not much longer than it normally is. We usually keep it a little bit tighter, like an hour and a half. Again, mainly because, Bonkai Merc typically has to get out to go to D&D on Saturdays. But since this is, this is a single episode, it's just me here. He didn't want to come and host with me. Like I said, it was pretty from that colonoscopy. So he took the day off. I, sat in and talked about all the stuff I wanted to talk about. We watched some stuff, talked about some stuff that we watched. And yeah, that's all I got for you. If you enjoyed the live stream today, if you joined me live and enjoyed it, thanks for joining me live. If you are watching this on the replay, try to join us live. Try to do this at least once a week. Hopefully, maybe more often if you guys like it. If not, we'll always catch you on the replay. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check us out on all the social media. You'll catch all those either in the description down below or somewhere in the end credits here. Be sure to comment, subscribe, Chi-Town, smash that like button if you liked what you saw today. But until next time, folks, thanks for joining me. I've been Master D Maito. Peace. I'll see you. And as my co-host likes to say, give me that intro, please, or that outro, please.
This is the way.